My granddaughter's hand was shaking when she touched my wrist under the dining table. She was only 9 years old. Her fingers were cold. Her eyes were wide. And while my whole family sat around me smiling like it was a perfect Sunday evening, she leaned close to my ear and whispered 6 words I will never forget. "Grandpa, please don't eat the dinner." For a moment, I thought I had misunderstood her. The dining room was warm. The chandelier above us gave everything a soft, golden glow. My son Daniel was carving the roast at the head of the table, like he owned the house, even though the house had been mine for 43 years. My daughter-in-law Marissa was pouring wine into crystal glasses she only used when she wanted people to believe we were still a loving family. My other son Paul sat across from me, checking his phone every few seconds. His wife Elise smiled too much. And my granddaughter Lily, little Lily, sat beside me with her napkin crushed in both hands like she was trying not to cry. I looked down at my plate. Roast beef, mashed potatoes, green beans, dark brown gravy poured neatly over everything. Nothing looked wrong. But after 40 years as an insurance investigator, I had learned one thing about danger. It rarely announces itself. Sometimes it smells like smoke. Sometimes it wears a nice suit. And sometimes it sits on a dinner plate while your family smiles at you. I slowly placed my fork down. No one noticed at first. Then Marissa's eyes moved to my hand. Just my hand. Not my face. Not my expression. My hand. That was the first thing that made my stomach tighten. "Dad?" Daniel said, still holding the carving knife. "Something wrong?" I smiled gently, the kind of smile old men use when they don't want anyone to know their heart has started beating faster. "No," I said, "just letting it cool." Marissa's smile stayed on her face, but something behind her eyes flickered. I had seen that look before. In claimants who lied about house fires, in widows who knew more about missing policies than they admitted, in men who acted shocked when their burned garage somehow contained exactly the documents they wanted destroyed. That look meant calculation. Lily's knee bumped mine under the table. Once, then twice. A warning. I didn't look at her. I picked up my water glass instead and took a small sip. Across the table, Paul leaned back and said, "Come on, Dad. Marissa spent all afternoon cooking. Don't insult her." That sentence told me something too. Nobody had accused me of insulting her, but Paul was already defending the meal. I looked at my plate again. The gravy had a faint bitter smell beneath the rosemary. Not strong, not obvious, but there. I had lost most of my sense of smell after a furnace explosion investigation in 1989. A chemical flash had burned the inside of my nose badly enough that I missed half a winter of work. Since then, I couldn't smell flowers well. Couldn't smell rain properly, and sometimes couldn't even tell when toast was burning. But bitterness, chemicals, metal, those stayed with me. Those I noticed, and that gravy smelled like something pretending to be food. I should have left right then. I know that now. But when a child begs you not to eat at a table full of your own blood, you don't run first. You listen, you observe, you wait, because children rarely understand the whole crime, but they often see the first piece of it. My name is Walter Hayes. I am 72 years old. For 38 years, I investigated insurance fraud across Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky, and sometimes farther if the case was ugly enough. I saw men burn their businesses for payouts. I saw wives hide policies from husbands. I saw sons forge signatures after funerals before the flowers had even wilted. I thought I understood greed. I thought I knew what family could do when money entered the room. But I did not know my own family, not really. Not until the night my granddaughter saved my life at Sunday dinner. My wife, Evelyn, had died 4 years before that dinner. She was the kind of woman who could make a quiet kitchen feel like church. Soft hands, sharp mind, no patience for cruelty. She used to tell me, "Walter, people show you who they are long before they admit it." I missed her every morning, especially in that house. The breakfast nook where she used to read paperbacks, the back porch where she drank tea, The hallway where her framed photos still hung, though Marissa had once suggested I modernize the place and remove the old memories. Old memories. That was what she called my wife. After Evelyn died, my sons changed. Not overnight. That would have been easier to see. No, they changed slowly, like milk turning sour in the fridge. Daniel started visiting more often, but only when he needed something signed, repaired, or discussed for the future. Paul called. Less, but when he did, he always asked the same kinds of questions. Had I updated my will? Was the house still in my name alone? Had I considered assisted living? Did I really need to keep driving? Wasn't it dangerous for a man my age to live by himself? They wrapped control in concern. That is how smart people steal from old people. They do not start by grabbing. They start by worrying. At first, I ignored it. Maybe because I was lonely. Maybe because part of me wanted to believe my boys still cared. If you have ever sat in a quiet house after losing someone who was your whole world, you understand the strange hunger of old age. You forgive things you shouldn't. You accept visits with hidden motives. You smile when people speak to you like furniture, because even bad company sometimes feels better than silence. But Lily was different. Lily was Daniel's daughter from his first marriage. Her mother, Claire, had left when Lily was 4 after a custody fight that Daniel described as complicated. I never got the full story. Every time I asked, Daniel's jaw would tighten, and Marissa would say, "We don't talk about unstable people in front of the child." But Lily loved my house. She loved the old piano nobody played. She loved Evelyn's garden gloves. She loved sitting with me in the garage while I cleaned my fishing rods. She was quiet, observant, and too careful for a child. That always bothered me. Children who tiptoe through rooms have usually learned someone gets angry when they make noise. That Sunday dinner had been Daniel's idea. He called me 3 days earlier. "Dad, we should all get together," he said. "Family dinner. No stress. Just us. No stress." When someone says that before anything has happened, stress is already in the room. I asked, "What's the occasion?" He laughed too quickly. "Do we need an occasion to feed my father?" I almost said yes. Instead, I agreed. Because Lily would be there. When I arrived at Daniel's house that evening, the first thing I noticed was the smell of lemon cleaner. Too much of it. The front hallway had been scrubbed so hard it smelled like a hospital. Marissa opened the door wearing a cream sweater and pearls. Pearls at home always meant she wanted the evening to feel official. "Walter," she said, hugging me with only her arms, not her body. "You look tired. Not, 'Good to see you.' Not, 'Come in.' You look tired." A small cut disguised as concern. Daniel came from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. "Dad," he said brightly. "Big night." Then he paused. Just half a second. But I heard it. "Big night." "Big?" I asked. He smiled. "Big meal." That was only the beginning. Paul and Elise arrived 10 minutes later. Paul smelled like expensive cologne and impatience. Elise carried a folder under one arm, which she quickly placed on the sideboard when she saw me notice it. I did not ask about it. Old investigators learn not to point at the thing people hide. You let them believe you missed it. Then you watch where their eyes go. Lily came downstairs last. She wore a blue dress and white socks, but her hair looked like she had brushed it herself. One side was tucked behind her ear. The other side fell across her cheek. When she saw me, her whole face changed. For one beautiful second, she looked like a child again. "Grandpa," she whispered. She ran to me and hugged my waist. I bent down and kissed the top of her head. "Hello, little bird." That was Evelyn's nickname for her. Lily pressed her face against my coat and held on too long. Behind her, Marissa said, "Lily, don't wrinkle Grandpa's jacket." The child let go instantly. Too instantly. I looked at Marissa. She smiled. I smiled back. But something inside me had already gone still. Dinner began with forced laughter, the kind of laughter families use when they are trying to hide a transaction. Daniel talked about the neighborhood. Paul talked about taxes. Elise asked whether I still had all those boxes in my basement. Marissa served everyone herself, that mattered. She carried each plate from the kitchen. She placed Daniel's plate first, then Paul's, then Elise's, then Lily's, mine last. But mine was different. The gravy was darker, not dramatically, just enough. If I had been younger, maybe I would have missed it. But old eyes are not always weak. Sometimes they have simply watched more lies. I glanced at Lily's plate. Her roast had almost no gravy. Mine was soaked in it. Lily saw me notice. Her face went pale. That was when her hand found my wrist. "Grandpa, please don't eat the dinner." The room seemed to narrow after that. The knife in Daniel's hand, the folder on the sideboard, the locked kitchen door behind Marissa. Paul's phone face down now, no longer being checked. Elise watching Lily instead of watching me. All of it became sharp. I picked up my fork again. Lily's breath caught. But instead of eating, I gently pushed a green bean through the gravy and said, "This looks wonderful, Marissa." Her shoulders relaxed, just slightly. "Family recipe," she said. That was a lie. Evelyn had cooked for this family for 45 years. There was no family recipe involving bitter brown gravy. Daniel lifted his glass. "To Dad," he said. Everyone raised their glasses, even Lily with her water. "To Dad," Paul repeated. Elise smiled with her teeth. Marissa watched my plate. Not my toast, not my face. My plate. I raised my glass. "To family," I said, and I watched every adult at that table hesitate. Only Lily drank. I pretended to cut the meat, then I let my knife slip. It clattered loudly against the plate and I winced, pressing my hand to my chest. "Dad?" Daniel said. There it was. Not fear, not concern, annoyance. "I'm fine," I said. "Just a little tightness." Marissa stood too quickly. "Maybe you should eat something." That sentence landed in the room like a dropped coin. Maybe you should eat something. Not sit down, not breathe, not should we call someone. Eat. I looked at her. Her face froze. Paul cleared his throat. "Low blood sugar can do that." Elise nodded. "Yes, food will help." Lily whispered, "No." It was so quiet I almost missed it. But Marissa didn't. Her head turned slowly toward the child. "What did you say?" Lily stared down at her lap. "Nothing." Marissa's voice softened. "That was worse. Lily, sweetheart, go upstairs." Daniel said, "Marissa." "No," she said, still smiling. "Adults are talking." Lily did not move. Her little hand found the edge of my sleeve under the table and held it like a lifeline. At that moment I understood something. Lily was not guessing. She knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. I leaned back, breathing a little harder than necessary. "I think I need the restroom." Daniel put the carving knife down. "I'll help you." "No need," I insist. There it was again. Control dressed as care. I stood slowly. Age can be useful if people underestimate it. They expect you to move slowly. They expect confusion. They expect weakness. So I gave them all three. I placed one hand on the table. I let my knee tremble. I looked toward the hallway as if I needed to remember where the bathroom was. But what I really needed was distance from the plate and maybe 1 minute alone with Lily. "I'll show him," Lily suddenly said. Marissa snapped, "Lily!" But I had already placed my hand on the child's shoulder. "She knows where it is," I said. Daniel looked at Paul. Paul looked at Marissa. No one liked it. That told me it was the right move. The hallway was dim. Family photos lined the wall, but I noticed something immediately. The picture of Evelyn holding newborn Lily was gone. In its place was a framed print of a beach none of us had ever visited. Lily walked beside me without speaking until we reached the small guest bathroom. Then, before I could say a word, she pulled me past it toward the laundry room. "Grandpa," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I heard them." My blood went cold. "What did you hear?" She looked back toward the dining room. They said you were being stubborn. They said after tonight nobody would argue anymore. The house seemed to breathe around us. The dryer hummed softly. A pipe clicked in the wall. From the dining room came muffled laughter that sounded too loud, too sudden, too fake. I knelt slowly in front of her. Lily, listen to me carefully. Did they say something about the food? Her eyes filled with tears. I saw Aunt Marissa put drops in your gravy. Drops. Not powder. Not extra salt. Drops. What kind of drops? I don't know. A little brown bottle. She got it from the cabinet above the fridge. She said not too much or it would show. For 1 second I was no longer 72. I was 38 again, standing in a burned kitchen, watching a man cry over a dead wife while antifreeze sat hidden behind the flour bin. Not too much or it would show. That was not panic language, that was planning language. I kept my voice calm. Did anyone see you? Lily nodded, trembling. Uncle Paul did. That changed everything. What did he do? He told me if I loved my dad, I would forget it. I closed my eyes. There are moments when anger arrives so fast it feels like heat behind your eyes. But rage is useless if you spend it too early. So I swallowed it. I held Lily's shoulders gently. You did the right thing. She started crying silently. I don't want you to die. Those 6 words nearly broke me, not because I was afraid of dying. Old men think about death more than young people imagine, but no child should have to save her grandfather from the people sitting at her own dinner table. No child should carry that kind of fear in her small chest. I took my phone from my pocket. Lily grabbed my wrist. No, they'll hear. She was right. Daniel's house had cameras, a security system he bragged about constantly. But I also knew something Daniel didn't. 2 years earlier, after a string of porch thefts in my neighborhood, I had helped him choose that system, and I remembered where the blind spots were. Lily, I whispered, I need you to do exactly what I say. Can you be brave for 2 more minutes? She nodded, wiping her cheeks. Go back to the table, say I'm washing up, then spill your water on my plate. Her eyes widened. My plate? No, mine. But they'll be mad. I know. She swallowed. What will you do? I'm going to find the bottle. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. I pointed toward the dining room. Little bird, look at me. She looked. Your grandma Evelyn used to say, brave doesn't mean not scared. It means scared and still doing the right thing. Her chin trembled. Then she nodded. She walked back alone. I listened to her small footsteps disappear into the dining room. A few seconds later, Marissa's voice rose. Where is your grandfather? Then Lily said, he's washing his hands. Silence. Then Daniel laughed, too loud. I moved, not fast, not noisy. The kitchen door from the hallway was locked, just as I expected. But old houses teach old men patience. I went through the mudroom instead. Daniel had installed a sliding pocket door there years ago. The latch never caught properly if you lifted it before pulling. I pulled. The door opened. The kitchen was spotless. Too spotless. No dirty pans in the sink, no cutting board, no gravy pot on the stove. That was wrong. A real meal leaves evidence. A staged meal cleans itself before the victim finishes eating. Above the fridge was a narrow cabinet. I opened it. Serving trays, light bulbs, a bottle of vanilla extract, a box of birthday candles. No brown bottle. But the cabinet smelled faintly medicinal. She had moved it. Of course she had. From the dining room, Lily suddenly cried out. Oh no, glass shattered, water spilled. Marissa shouted, Lily, good girl. I scanned the kitchen, trash can. I stepped on the pedal. Inside were paper towels, onion skins, plastic wrap, and at the bottom, wrapped in a napkin, something small and dark. I reached in. The bottle was brown glass, no label, dropper cap, half full. My fingers tightened around it. Then I heard footsteps. Not from the dining room, behind me. I turned. Paul stood in the mudroom doorway. His face had lost all its warmth. For a long second, neither of us spoke. His eyes dropped to the bottle in my hand. Then he smiled. Not nicely. Dad, he said quietly. You're confused. That's when I realized my sons had not invited me to dinner. They had invited me to a trap. And the first person guarding the exit was my own child. Paul stood in the mudroom doorway. His face looked different now. The polite smile was gone. The fake concern was gone. The mask had slipped. And for the first time that night, I was looking at the real man underneath. His eyes moved from my face to the bottle in my hand. Then back again. Neither of us spoke. The silence felt dangerous. Not loud, not dramatic, just dangerous. Like standing on ice and hearing the first crack beneath your feet. Finally, Paul sighed. You shouldn't have done that, Dad. His voice was calm. Too calm. I held the bottle loosely. Interesting choice of words. He glanced toward the dining room. They'll hear us. They? I asked. Paul's jaw tightened. I noticed it immediately. Not Daniel. Not Marissa. They. The word had escaped before he could stop it. A group, a plan, a conspiracy. Not one person. Several. That was only the beginning. I slowly slipped the bottle into my jacket pocket. Paul saw it. His eyes narrowed. You need to give me that. No. You're confused. I almost laughed. Confused. That word again. Old people hear it constantly. Anytime someone wants control, they start by questioning your mind. You're confused. You're tired. You're forgetting things. You're not yourself. It's amazing how quickly family members diagnose mental decline when money is involved. I stepped closer. Tell me what's in the bottle. Paul didn't answer. Instead, he said something worse. You were never supposed to find it. The air seemed to leave the room. Not supposed to find it. Not. There's nothing in it. Not. You're mistaken. Not. It's medicine. Oh, his first instinct had been acceptance, because he already knew exactly what it was. I still remember the look on his face. Not guilt. Fear. Real fear. Because suddenly the plan wasn't going according to schedule, and people become dangerous when plans fall apart. A crash echoed from the dining room. More shouting. Lily. She was buying me time. God help me. A 9-year-old child was protecting me while grown adults plotted something in the next room. That thought filled me with a cold fury I hadn't felt in years. Paul stepped forward. Give me the bottle. No. His expression hardened. Please don't make this harder. Harder. That word stayed with me. Harder for who? For me? Or for them? I studied him carefully. Years of investigations had taught me something important. People reveal themselves when they feel trapped, so I stayed silent. Let him talk. People always talk, especially liars. Paul rubbed his forehead. This isn't what you think. Then tell me what it is. He looked away. That tiny movement told me everything. At that moment, I understood the truth. Whatever was in that bottle. It wasn't harmless. Otherwise, he would have explained immediately. Instead, he looked terrified. Then a voice shouted from the dining room. Paul! Marissa! Paul flinched. Actually flinched, I noticed. Interesting. Very interesting. Because men don't usually fear their sister-in-law unless she knows something, or controls something, or has something to lose. That was when I realized this family dinner wasn't being run by Daniel. It was being run by Marissa, and I was about to learn something worse. Paul stepped aside. Put it back. No. Please. There was desperation now. Real desperation. Paul, I said quietly. What? When did you stop being my son? His face changed, just for a second. Pain. Real pain. Then it vanished. Gone. Hidden again. And suddenly I knew something else. Paul wasn't the architect. He was a participant. There's a difference. Architects create evil. Participants convince themselves they have no choice. Both are guilty, but only one starts the fire. The shouting grew louder. I moved past him, toward the hallway. Paul grabbed my arm, hard, very hard. For a moment we froze. Father and son, 72 and 45, neither moving, neither speaking. Then he whispered something that made my blood run cold. "If you leave tonight, she'll destroy all of us." I turned slowly. "Who?" His face went white. Too late. He had already answered. "Marissa." The name never left his mouth. It didn't have to. I could see it. And then Daniel appeared at the far end of the hallway. His eyes landed on us, on my arm, on Paul's hand, on my face. Then his gaze dropped to my jacket pocket. His expression changed instantly. He knew. He knew I had found something. For one terrifying second, nobody moved. Then Daniel smiled. A horrible smile. The kind people wear when they realize the lie is over. "Dad," he said softly. "We need to talk." I should have left right then. Instead, I followed him because investigators have a weakness, curiosity. And mine had nearly gotten me killed more than once. The dining room looked different now. The illusion was broken. I could see everything. Marissa standing beside the table, Elise staring at the floor, Lily crying silently, a shattered glass near my chair, water soaking my dinner plate, my untouched dinner plate, the one that was supposed to save my life, or maybe end it, depending on who you asked. Daniel closed the dining room door. Click. The sound felt final, like a prison cell. Nobody sat down. Nobody pretended anymore. The performance was over. Marissa crossed her arms. "You found the bottle." Not a question, a statement. I looked at her. For years I had convinced myself she was merely controlling, manipulative, selfish. Now I saw something colder. Calculation, pure calculation. "You poisoned my food." Marissa laughed. Actually laughed. The sound echoed through the room. "No." "Then explain the bottle." Her eyes narrowed. "No." The honesty shocked me. For the first time all night she wasn't pretending. That was terrifying, because people only stop pretending when they believe they no longer need to. I looked at Daniel. My son, the little boy who used to ride on my shoulders, the teenager I taught to fish, the young father I helped after his divorce, now standing across from me like a stranger. "What is this?" Daniel swallowed. His eyes looked exhausted, defeated, broken, almost frightened. Then he whispered, "We're out of money." Silence. Complete silence. The room seemed to freeze. Marissa closed her eyes. Paul looked away. Elise started crying, and suddenly, pieces began sliding into place. Not all of them, just enough. The expensive cars, the luxury vacations, the endless renovations, the new investment business Daniel kept bragging about, the missing savings, the constant questions about my will, the assisted living brochures, the pressure, the concern, the visits, the sudden family dinners. It all connected, like puzzle pieces finally forming a picture. "We owe everything," Daniel whispered. "How much?" His answer hit me like a truck. 3.8 million. Lily gasped. Even the child understood that number. I stared at him. $3.8 million. Gone. Destroyed. Lost. How? Daniel sat heavily in his chair. He looked older than I had ever seen him. It started with real estate. Of course it did. Always real estate, always greed, always the promise of easy money. Then came investment schemes, loans, hidden debts, private lenders, fake partnerships, bad contracts, one disaster after another, each one bigger than the last, until they were drowning. And then they looked at me, not as a father, not as a grandfather, not as family, as an asset, a solution, a number on a balance sheet. I slowly sat down. My legs suddenly felt weak. "How much am I worth to you?" Nobody answered. So I asked again, "How much?" Finally, Marissa spoke. "The house alone is worth 2 million. There it was. Not Dad. Not Walter. The house. The number. the asset. My wife's garden, my memories, my life, reduced to a market value. I looked at Lily. She was trembling. And then she whispered something nobody expected. Grandma knew. The room exploded. Marissa spun toward her. What? Daniel stood. Lily! But the child kept speaking, tears running down her cheeks. Grandma knew. I felt my heart stop. Evelyn, my Evelyn, dead 4 years, gone, and somehow still part of this. What do you mean? I asked gently. Lily looked at me, then she pointed upstairs. To the attic. There are letters. Every adult in the room went pale. Every single one. That was when I realized the real story had not started tonight. It had started years ago. Before Evelyn died, before the debts, before the dinner, before the bottle. Somewhere above us, hidden in the attic. My late wife had left something behind, something powerful enough to terrify everyone at that table, and judging by the fear on Marissa's face, whatever those letters contained could destroy everything. And for the first time that night, I wasn't the one in danger anymore. They were. Nobody moved. Not me. Not Daniel. Not Paul. Not Marissa. Not even little Lily. The room felt frozen, as if the entire house had suddenly stopped breathing. There are letters, Lily repeated softly. I looked around the table, and what I saw chilled me more than the bottle. Fear. Real fear. On every adult face. Not confusion. Not surprise. Fear. That meant one thing. They already knew the letters existed. My late wife had left something behind, and they had been praying I never found it. I slowly stood. I'm going upstairs. Marissa stepped forward instantly. No. The word came out too fast, too sharp, too desperate. Every investigator knows this rule. The thing people fight hardest to hide is usually the thing that matters most. I turned toward her. No? Her face tightened. The attic is dangerous. Dangerous, interesting. Because in 4 years, she had never once mentioned the attic. Not when Lily played upstairs. Not when electricians visited. Not when contractors inspected the roof. Only now. Only tonight. Only after Lily mentioned the letters. That was all the confirmation I needed. I started walking. Daniel moved into my path. Dad. I looked directly into his eyes. What are you afraid I'll find? He couldn't answer, because he already knew. And deep down, so did I. Whatever Evelyn had hidden. It wasn't a memory, it was evidence. The attic stairs creaked beneath my feet. Every step felt heavier. The air grew colder. Dust floated through narrow beams of moonlight coming from a small window at the far end. This attic had once belonged to Evelyn. She loved old things. Old photographs, old books, old letters, old stories. She believed every family carried secrets. Most just buried them better than others. I remembered her words suddenly, a conversation from 6 years earlier. We had been sitting on the back porch watching a storm roll across the fields. She had stared into the distance and quietly said, "If something ever happens to me, promise you'll trust your instincts." At the time, I laughed. Now, I wasn't laughing. I reached the attic landing. Rows of storage boxes sat under white sheets. Christmas decorations, old furniture, photo albums, decades of memories. But one thing stood out immediately. A small cedar chest, positioned directly beneath the attic window. The lid was slightly open, like someone had been inside recently. Very recently. I walked toward it, slowly. Behind me I heard footsteps. Daniel, Paul, Marissa, following, watching, waiting. I knelt beside the chest. The wood smelled faintly of lavender. Evelyn's favorite scent. My hands trembled as I lifted the lid. Inside sat dozens of sealed envelopes, everyone addressed in my wife's handwriting. My breath caught. Even after 4 years, I knew that handwriting instantly, The elegant curves, the careful spacing. The tiny flourish beneath her "Y" it was her without question. Across the front of the top envelope were 7 words, "For Walter, open only if necessary." The room behind me went silent. I could feel them staring. I picked it up, broke the seal, opened the letter, and suddenly, my dead wife's voice returned. "Walter, if you're reading this, then something has gone terribly wrong. I pray I'm mistaken. But if I'm not, then please know I tried to stop it." My vision blurred. For a second, I couldn't breathe. It felt like she was sitting beside me again, like she had reached across 4 years of death to grab my hand. I continued reading. 3 years ago, I discovered something that frightened me. At first, I thought it was greed. Then I realized it was something worse. Planning. I looked up. Daniel had gone pale. Paul looked sick. Marissa stared at the floor. Evelyn continued. "I found documents hidden in Daniel's office regarding life insurance policies, property transfers, and estate projections. Most of them included dates after your death." That sentence hit me like a hammer. After your death. Not retirement, not relocation. Death. My hands tightened around the paper. The attic suddenly felt colder. Much colder. I kept reading. At first, I believed they were simply preparing for the future. Then I found calculations. And those calculations included scenarios based on how quickly assets could be accessed. The room behind me was completely silent now. Nobody interrupted. Nobody dared, because every word was destroying them. I turned the page. "Walter, if you are reading this, then I was right to worry, and if I was right, you are in danger." I closed my eyes. Danger. Evelyn had known. Years ago. Long before tonight. Long before the bottle. Long before Lily's warning. She had seen something. Something none of us understood yet. Then I reached the final paragraph, and my entire world changed. The truth isn't about the house. It isn't about the money, and it isn't about the inheritance. It's about Lily. I stared at the page. Lily? Why Lily? I quickly turned to the next envelope. This one carried another message. "Read second." I opened it. Inside were photographs. My stomach dropped. Old photographs. Private investigator photographs. Surveillance photos. Dozens of them. Marissa meeting strangers. Daniel entering office buildings. Cash exchanges. Documents changing hands. Meetings in parking lots. Secret appointments. And then, one photograph made my blood freeze. It showed Marissa sitting inside a black SUV, beside a man I recognized instantly, a man I had investigated 20 years earlier. Victor Kane. The name alone made my skin crawl. Victor Kane wasn't a businessman. He wasn't an investor. He wasn't even a legitimate lender. Victor Kane was a financial predator, a specialist, the kind of man who targeted desperate people, the kind who destroyed families, the kind who always wanted collateral. I remembered him clearly. 3 bankruptcies, 2 fraud investigations, multiple lawsuits, rumors of organized crime connections. And now my daughter-in-law was meeting him, secretly, repeatedly. I looked at Daniel. "What is this?" Daniel collapsed into an old chair. His shoulders sagged, and for the first time that night, he looked defeated. Not angry, defeated. "We borrowed from him." The words barely escaped his mouth. "How much?" Nobody answered. Then Paul whispered, "Everything." I felt a cold wave wash over me. Everything. Not some money. Not a loan. Everything. Daniel covered his face. "We thought we could pay it back." Marissa suddenly snapped. "We were paying it back." The room turned toward her. Her mask had finally shattered. Gone was the smiling hostess. Gone was the polite wife. Now I was seeing the real Marissa. Sharp, cold, furious. "You promised the investments would work," she screamed at Daniel. "You promised." Daniel stood. "You pushed me into them. You wanted the money. So did you." Years of resentment exploded at once. The argument erupted like gasoline meeting fire. Accusations, screaming, blame, secrets. Everything poured out. And in the middle of it all, I found another envelope, smaller, different, addressed to Lily. My hands froze. The envelope was sealed with a tiny blue sticker, a bird, Evelyn's symbol. I opened it carefully. Inside was a handwritten note, only 3 sentences. Walter, if you're reading this, then Lily needs protection. She is not merely part of the story. She is the reason for it. Everything stopped. My heart pounded. What did that mean? I turned the paper over and found a folded document hidden inside. Legal paperwork, official paperwork, guardianship paperwork, signed, witnessed, notarized. My eyes widened. I read the first line, then read it again, then a third time. Because I couldn't believe it. If circumstances require immediate intervention. Legal guardianship of Lily Hayes transfers to Walter Hayes. I stared. Hayes. Not Daniel's last name. Not Marissa's. Hayes. My name. My family name. The room began spinning. I looked toward Lily standing near the attic stairs, confused, scared, crying. Then I looked at Daniel. What does this mean? Daniel's face went white. Absolute white. Marissa suddenly lunged forward. Give me that. For one shocking second, she actually tried to snatch the papers from my hands, but years of reflexes kicked in. I stepped back. She missed. The room erupted. Daniel grabbed her arm. Paul shouted. Lily screamed, and suddenly Marissa yelled something she never intended to reveal. He can't have her. Silence. Pure silence. The words echoed through the attic. He can't have her. Not. That's not true. Not you're mistaken. Not show me the document. No. He can't have her. That was when I realized something horrifying. The inheritance. The debts. The bottle. The dinner. The pressure. The entire plan. It wasn't really about me. I was only an obstacle. The real target was Lily. And whatever secret my wife had uncovered was powerful enough that someone had been willing to poison an old man to keep it buried. I looked at Lily, then at the guardianship papers, then at the photograph of Victor Kane. Finally, all the pieces started moving together. But I still didn't know the worst part. I still didn't know why Evelyn believed Lily needed protection. And judging by the terror spreading across Marissa's face, that answer was far worse than anything I'd discovered so far. Because at that exact moment, someone downstairs began pounding on the front door. Hard, violently, over and over. Boom, boom, boom. Everyone froze. Then Daniel whispered 2 words that made the blood leave his face. Victor's here. And suddenly I understood. The real danger had finally arrived. Boom, boom, boom. The pounding shook the entire house. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Even little Lily looked toward the attic stairs as if she already knew who was standing behind that front door. Daniel's face had turned gray. Paul looked like he was about to be sick. And Marissa. Marissa looked terrified, not nervous, not worried. Terrified. That told me everything. Whatever game they had been playing, they had lost control of it, and now the real predator had arrived. Victor Kane. I remembered him better than I wanted to. 20 years earlier, I had watched him destroy 3 families without ever breaking a law that could be proven. He specialized in desperate people, people drowning in debt, people willing to sign anything, people willing to sacrifice anyone. The pounding came again. Boom, 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 then a voice echoed from downstairs. Open the door. The entire house froze. Victor. No question. Same deep voice. Same controlled menace. The kind of voice that didn't need to shout, because everyone already knew what happened when it did. Daniel sat down heavily. Oh God. Marissa spun toward him. You said we had another week. I thought we did. You thought? They began arguing again. But I wasn't listening anymore. I was looking at Lily. The child was shaking, not because of Victor, not because of the debt, because of something else. Something bigger. Something she still hadn't told me. I knelt beside her. Little bird. Her eyes filled with tears. Grandpa, tell me the truth. Her lower lip trembled. Then she whispered, "They fight about me." The room went silent. Again. I slowly stood. Nobody spoke. Nobody denied it. Nobody looked surprised. That was my answer. "They fight about you?" I asked softly. Lily nodded. All the time. I looked around the attic. Every adult face told the same story. Guilt, fear, panic. I held up Evelyn's guardianship papers. Why? No answer. Then Victor's voice thundered from downstairs. Last chance. Daniel closed his eyes. And finally, he broke. The truth came pouring out. 3 years earlier, Victor Kane had agreed to refinance Daniel's collapsing investments. But Victor wanted collateral. Real collateral. Not property, not vehicles, not stocks. Something else. Something more valuable. At first, I didn't understand. Then Daniel whispered words that nearly stopped my heart. He wanted Lily's trust. My stomach dropped. Lily's trust? What trust? Nobody answered. Then suddenly I remembered something. A conversation. Years ago, Evelyn speaking with an attorney, a private meeting, a discussion she never fully explained. At the time, I ignored it. Now, it came rushing back. I turned toward the cedar chest, frantically searching through the envelopes. More letters, more documents, more evidence. Then I found it, a sealed legal packet, marked, "For Walter only." I opened it, and everything changed. Everything. Inside was a trust agreement, created 11 years earlier. By Claire, Lily's mother. I read the document, then read it again, then again. Because I couldn't believe it. Claire wasn't poor. She wasn't unstable. She wasn't broken. She was wealthy. Extremely wealthy. Her grandfather had built a regional trucking empire worth tens of millions of dollars. When Claire died in a car accident 6 years earlier, her entire inheritance transferred into a protected trust. For Lily, not Daniel, not future spouses, only Lily. The amount sat at the bottom of the page. $27 million. My knees nearly buckled. 27 million. The attic spun. The debt, the pressure, the manipulation, the dinner, the bottle. Everything suddenly made sense. I wasn't the target. Not really. I was the obstacle. The last obstacle standing between them and Lily's money. And Evelyn had discovered it years ago. That was why she created guardianship documents. That was why she hired investigators. That was why she left letters. She had seen the danger coming, years before anyone else. I looked at Daniel, my own son, the boy I had raised, the man standing in front of me, and I no longer recognized him. $27 million. Daniel looked away. I still remember that moment, because it wasn't shame on his face. It was defeat. He knew the lie was over. Victor pounded again, this time harder. The front door rattled. Marissa started crying. Actual tears. Not because of guilt, because of fear. Because she knew Victor was downstairs, and she knew he wanted his money. Then something happened that none of us expected. Lily walked forward. Slowly, quietly. She reached into the cedar chest and removed one final envelope. Small, yellow, hidden beneath everything else. Grandma told me about this. My heart stopped. What? She said only open it if everybody starts lying. The room froze. Every eye locked onto the envelope. Lily handed it to me. My hands shook. I opened it carefully. Inside was a flash drive and a note. Only one sentence. Walter, if they deny everything, press play. I looked at Daniel, at Paul, at Marissa. All three had gone pale. Absolutely pale. That was when I knew. Whatever was on that drive was devastating. I grabbed my laptop from my car. 5 minutes later, we were back in the living room. Victor still outside, still pounding, still shouting. But nobody cared anymore. The truth was finally here. I inserted the flash drive, clicked the first file, and the room exploded. Video footage. Hidden camera footage. Evelyn's hidden camera footage. Years of it. Conversations, meetings, arguments, plans, confessions, everything, every secret, recorded, saved, protected. Marissa appeared on screen, talking to Victor. Daniel discussing Lily's trust. Paul talking about legal guardianship loopholes, property transfers, insurance policies, estate projections, every disgusting detail, all recorded, all preserved. All undeniable. The room fell silent. Nobody could deny anything anymore. Then came the final video, recorded only 3 months before Evelyn died. My wife sat alone in her study, older, tired, but still strong, still Evelyn. She looked directly into the camera, then directly at me, or at least it felt that way. "Hello, Walter." My chest tightened. I hadn't heard her voice in 4 years. Not really. Not like this. Not alive. Not moving. Not smiling. Tears filled my eyes instantly. She continued, "If you're watching this, then I wasn't paranoid." The room went completely silent. "I discovered their plans years ago." She paused. "And I discovered something else." Then she smiled sadly. "The poison." Everyone froze. Even Daniel. Even Marissa. Even Paul. Evelyn continued. Marissa began researching substances that imitate natural medical events. The room exploded. Marissa stood up. "No." But nobody listened. The video kept playing. I collected evidence. Evelyn lifted documents toward the camera. Laboratory reports, emails, recorded conversations. My blood turned cold. The poison. Years ago. She knew. She actually knew. Then came the final blow. "I have arranged for all evidence to be delivered automatically to authorities if anything suspicious happens to Walter." Silence. Pure silence. Then Marissa collapsed into a chair, because she finally understood. Evelyn had won years ago, before she died. She had already won. Sirens suddenly echoed outside. Police. Several vehicles. Red and blue lights flashed through the windows. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then Victor Kane tried opening the front door. Locked. Again. Locked. Then police voices shouted, "Federal agents!" The house erupted. Victor ran. Officers chased him. Lights flashed. Doors slammed. Shouts echoed through the neighborhood. And within minutes, it was over. Completely over. The next 6 months destroyed everything Daniel and Marissa had built. Fraud investigations, financial crimes, forgery, conspiracy, attempted poisoning. Evidence poured from Evelyn's files. Bank records, recordings, documents, witnesses, everything. The bottle itself was tested. The results were horrifying. A combination of substances designed to trigger a cardiac event in someone my age, natural enough to avoid immediate suspicion, lethal enough to work. Lily had saved my life. There was no longer any doubt. The child saved me. The child they were trying to use. The child they forgot to fear. Because truth has a strange habit. It often arrives in the smallest voice in the room. 1 year later, I sat on the back porch of my house, the same porch Evelyn loved, the same rocking chair, the same sunset. But everything else had changed. Lily sat beside me. Safe, protected, legally under my guardianship, exactly as Evelyn intended. The trust remained untouched, protected, secure. And for the first time in years, the child laughed freely. No fear, no tension, no secrets, just laughter. the sound Evelyn would have loved most. "Grandpa?" I smiled. "Yes, little bird?" She looked toward the sunset. Grandma knew everything, didn't she? I looked at the orange horizon and thought about my wife, the woman who protected us even after death, the woman who saw danger before anyone else, the woman who refused to surrender. Then I smiled. Almost everything. Lily laughed, and for the first time since that terrible dinner, so did I. Sometimes people think justice arrives with sirens, or courtrooms, or handcuffs. Sometimes it does. But sometimes justice arrives much earlier. Sometimes it arrives the moment a frightened little girl reaches under a dinner table, takes her grandfather's hand, and whispers, "Please don't eat the dinner." And if there is one lesson I learned from everything that happened, it is this: when the only person warning you is a child, listen carefully. Because children often see the monsters long before adults are willing to admit they exist. The end.